Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Maya May, and I am here with Eva Posner, who is the founder of Evinco Strategies. And Eva, the unvarnished truth about life on the campaign trail, how our political systems work. We're going to talk today about messaging, about strategies on the ground, how people can get involved. So first of all, thank you for being here on the Lincoln Square Substack. How are you today?
I'm great, and thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Same, because we need this. So your company's mission statement is to break down barriers to progress and make way for a truly representative multiracial democracy, which feels like a little difficult to attain right now. Can you talk about how you decided to get involved in this?
Yeah. So I mean, the mission statement definitely has changed over time. I learned my own lessons about what democracy needs to look like since I've gotten into politics. And I think, the biggest piece for us, for me personally, and for us as a team is to make sure that our government reflects the population that it serves, because you can't solve problems for people if the people with the problems aren't involved in solving them. That's really the crux of it. But I got into politics in 2013, and I got my first campaign job in 2014, and I've been campaigning ever since.
Okay, so I love this idea that it should be representative, because it seems like we're moving in the opposite direction of that in many ways. You've said that people don't vote for what we do, but for why we do it. Can you break that down and tie that to how people can get more involved in their local communities?
Yeah, I think it comes from a place that people don't really think about politics. They feel it, right? They inherently trust that you're going to solve the problem, or they inherently don't trust that you have their back. And that's really where a lot of this comes from. In particular, governing it's not sexy. It's very bureaucratic. It's very wonky. There's giant vocabulary words and all of these acronyms, and every bill you ever see is 75,000 pages long. So how are you supposed to make sense of it? And the public doesn't. Not only that, but why should people give a shit about what's going on there when they are worried about paying their grocery bill, or whether or not they're going to go into medical debt, or finding a home to live in as homes become more and more rare and the prices go up? There's so many everyday problems that people are busy solving for themselves in order to work and parent and caretake and learn and live, that they don't have time to break down the intellectual intersections of every policy. And so they vote for the people who they trust share the same values that they do and will make decisions that align with those values a vast majority of the time. There's always the exceptions to that, but that's a different conversation.
Do you feel like there's a disconnect right now in real time that we're seeing with the way people are feeling and what Republicans are legislating? Because I think right now the bill they just passed is the Gulf of America bill. That seems to be the only thing that they've passed. And how Democrats are responding. Are you seeing any Democrats right now that you're saying, yes, this is it. This is how you message values?
So to the first part of your question, I think that the disconnect has been there for a long time. And I think that that's part of how we got here. It is for my entire adult life, and probably longer, but I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. The federal government has not actually done what the public wants, right? You have some 74% of people saying they want some kind of common sense gun control or common sense gun violence prevention. Nothing gets done. You have people, doing climate mitigation or climate action polls really well. Clean air and clean water poll really well. That's what the public wants. Nobody does anything about it. The public uprises and says, they can't afford their housing or they can't afford the healthcare, and nobody does anything about it. We have I have a friend who calls it a democracy output problem, where there is an input mechanism, but the output doesn't match the input. There are systemic reasons for that and the way that politics really works. But I do think that that is a big portion of The issue is that people run for office, go around promising a bunch of people things, saying they're going to do these things, and then they get in office and then they don't do any of those things. And you don't solve problems for people, and why should they trust you? As for Democrats who I think really get it, I think lots of people are having small moments where they really get it, right? I think AOC's messaging, AOC's accessibility has always been really impressive, the way that she takes people behind the scenes and how Congress really works, does her reels or lives or whatever those are in order to make sure that folks understand why she voted a certain way or why a process works a certain way. I thought Cory Booker's filibuster was really solid. The idea of like, I'm going to do something weird. I am going to stand up and say something, in particular, because the filibuster is often used as a threat. And then I personally think you should be required to stand on it if you were going to have a 60 vote threshold, but whatever, I don't make the Senate rules. So I thought that was really impressive. And I definitely think there are little moments here and there that where people really get it. I think a big part of it is that the information infrastructure is so fractured that how does that get out into the public? Mm-hmm. And I also think that a big piece of it is that people don't trust Congress. They haven't for a very long time. It polls in the 20s. So even if you love your Congress member, you don't trust Congress. Local government polls in, the 60s at any given moment. And so you have I think a trusted messenger problem, and we should be leaning harder on local surrogates to make the case for policy and solving those problems for folks.
Yeah, I love the idea of bringing in it local, because it is disempowering, this formula of we ask for this and you deliver us this, and that's not what we asked for. Incredibly frustrating. So can you talk about how in a local space that people can really create a narrative that connects with the people, and even just how the average citizen can start to get involved with this storytelling?
Right. So I think for narrative creation or reaching out to people, I think it's the old-fashioned stuff, particularly at the local level, that really breaks through. It's knocking on doors, it's holding town halls, it's being accessible so somebody can shake your hand and look you in the eye. Our media, we have there's a two-pronged problem with our media, and that one is that the mainstream media is really conglomerated, right? You have 5 companies that own everybody and everything, and the messaging is being distributed across the country, even down to the local stations, and they are owned by a combination of billionaires and foreigners, right? So do those people really have our best interests at heart? So you have that. And then you have the fact that none of us live in a singular truth anymore, because the rest of the media infrastructure is really niche and really divided, and everybody has their own personal algorithm, right? Instead of having a central truth of what it means to be an American or what it means to be a Virginian or anything like that, you have a personalized algorithm that feeds you things that you already believe. And then our brains have been rewired by social media to have shorter attention spans. That's been proven over time. And so breaking through all of that is a bigger societal problem than politics can really answer. And I don't necessarily think that while there are strategies and tactics that can be effective, I don't necessarily think that leaning in on the media piece of it is really the answer. I think you have to get back to the basics and actually be accessible to your neighbors and be accessible to the people who you represent, and let them talk to you. Let them yell at you, let them hold you accountable, up to the fact that, you're in a position of high accountability and people are going to make you uncomfortable. And I think a lot of politicians hide from their constituents. And I think that that's a really, really big problem. And the political industry isn't actually set up to hear from people. It is set up to parachute in 3 months before an election and shout at them about what the consultants think is important. So that's really the issue. For everyday people to get involved, y'all are going to hate this suggestion because it's really boring and it's really tedious, but it's real. Go to your city council meetings. Go to your board of supervisor meetings. If you can't stream them, if you can't go, right? You can create public comment. You can give that in person. A lot of places will also take it online if it's not available. and calling your council member's office, your mayor's office, whoever's in charge, making sure that you get in front of their face is a really big piece of it. The other piece, and this is, it's going to sound a little cynical, but there's a pay to play nature to politics. Like, that's just the reality of how this works. So, finding your elected official and donating $5 to their campaign, showing up to a fundraiser, those are the people that they're really going to listen to, is the people that show up to the fundraisers, show up to volunteer for them, or to any of their like community events, so that you have the opportunity to create relational buy-in with this person who's making really big decisions for you.
What would you say, because people are stressed right now, they're living paycheck to paycheck in many ways. What would you say to the ones who say, I don't have time to take out of my schedule to attend a city council meeting or to be a part of my local community?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I really, really do. But part of, I think, the problem that we're in right now is people tuning out of democracy and thinking that nothing matters. And I understand that. I understand that active destruction of democracy, which is what the Republicans are giving us, and managed atrophy of democracy, which is often what the Democrats offer, feels the same when you cannot pay your bills. I understand that. But the people who are going to be reflected in the outcomes are the people who show up and use their voice. That's just it. Now, there are lots of short and sweet online ways to do things. You can send emails rather than make a phone call, or rather than show up. You can, there's lots of activism platforms like moveon.org that have petitions and things like that people do listen to. But I will say the impact that is going to have on the politician is going to correlate with the effort that it took you to put it in.
I was just thinking about maybe we need a buddy system, because, just like even going to the gym is not something that one wants to do necessarily by themselves. So they have an accountability partner. I'm starting to think we might need accountability partners for us to get involved with our communities again and say, hey, just pick one person, guys, pick one person. And you can hold yourselves accountable together, because it can be very exhausting. And unfortunately, the far right is very good at getting people involved and weaponizing the narrative in a way that gets their people out of the House and into these rallies. Can you talk about how Trump has done that and what we can learn from how they frame unpopular policies in emotionally resonant ways?
Yeah. So first off, I love this buddy system idea. I also think you could potentially have, if you have like a small group of people that reflect the same values, maybe you can rotate. Like, you don't all have to go all the time, but maybe if you have 3 or 4 people, then you only have to go to a third or a quarter of those meetings. And because you guys give each other relief for your schedules. So I think there are great creative solutions like that, that people can use. As for Trump, this is historical. People love demagogues, right? They love a strong man. They love, the guy who is going to get up there and tell them that nothing is their fault and that it's all somebody else's fault. Historically, that hasn't worked out great for society. So, that's concerning. And I think a big part of the problem with the way that Democrats react to this is that you have Republicans and Trump with this big, emotive, negative, visceral style telling people, yes, you're angry and it's okay that you're angry. And Democrats, instead of saying, yes, you're angry and it's okay you're angry, and here's how we can fix it together, say, you wouldn't be angry if you understood what Joe Biden did for you.
Yeah, it's a little
They
smart.
talk down to people. They treat the public like they're stupid. They treat the voters like they don't know what's best for them. The other thing that I think people are missing, people in my industry specifically are missing, is the fact that we're asking a hell of a lot from people, from the public, from the voters. This is not a hypothetical block or blob that we are dealing with, right? It is human beings. And I don't know if you're familiar, I'm sure most people are, with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But there are a lot of things that have to be handled before you can get to a space of philosophizing or intellectualizing the world. And people don't have psychological safety right now, and they don't have public safety. And it's not new. It's been that way for decades. It has been eroded for decades. And so people are too busy plugging the holes in their own boat, trying to just survive. And instead of understanding that, we give people a white paper and tell them that they're stupid. And I just can't with that shit. Like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, you know, Kendrick Lamar has a great lyric, a bunch of lost souls in survival mode. And that is very much, you know, you speak to that. And so Democrats need to, we need a better playbook. Can you, if you could rewrite the Democratic Party's messaging, if you just throw out the playbook now and put in a new one, what would you do for 2026?
Oh, well, okay. So the thing is, if I could throw out the Democratic Party's playbook and rewrite it, it would take longer than 2026 to take effect. But I actually don't think we necessarily have a messaging problem as much as we have a message delivery problem that we talked through before. I think we have a trusted messenger problem and a problem listening to people. If I could reimagine the Democratic Party, I would make it bottom up instead of top down. I would invest in local races. I would invest in local parties. I would have, you know, all of those hundreds of millions of dollars put down into school board races and mayor's races and judges races and things like that, because those are the Democrats who can speak to someone about what actually matters to them and their neighborhood and their community and their day-to-day life. Those are the people who understand what those folks' lives look like. And I think you can have a two-way conversation that way, and you can start to see the input reflected in the output. And I don't think we necessarily need a central national message for what, I don't know, healthcare looks like, because each community looks different. Some communities have a fantastic state-of-the-art hospital available to them, and others are healthcare deserts where you have to drive 6 hours to get anywhere. And a national message isn't going to resonate in those different realities. So I think actually the National Party needs to let go a little bit, a lot of it, and stop sending a bunch of old men from K Street with their cigars or whatever they're doing to parachute in, spend hundreds of millions of dollars yelling at folks about what they think is important or what the polling shows. Polling is a snap in time. It doesn't work the way they want it to. I think that's been shown 7 million times. And really just hone in on the local message and have people turned out and messaged to and dealt with and have problems solved locally. People aren't going to show up to vote for their mayor and then like skip the presidential race. It will go back up the ballot. And I think that is a much stronger impact. That said, that is a pipe dream because that requires reversing the entire infrastructure.
But I like this idea of think locally, act locally, which is very different, yes, than what we've been doing. And it requires them to relinquish control. And I feel like the Dem leadership, a little bit of control freaks and not trusting. And the whole point of democracy is to trust each other and trust the voices on the ground. So send them money and trust that they know their communities and what their communities need. The people know what they need more than anything. And so I don't want it to be a pipe dream. I want it to be very real. And I know you are a part of making it a reality. Can you talk about some of the candidates that you've worked with who have inspired you the most?
Yeah. By name or just hypothetically?
However, whatever works. By name, hypothetically. I'd love to hear it by name. I think people want to know who they can get behind, who they can model their potential campaigns on. And so we need to hear the people who are doing it differently.
Yeah. So I have two examples off the top of my head. Both of them are out of San Diego. And that's where I spent most of my time. We're more across the country now, but that's where my career started. So the first one is Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp. She is a county supervisor in San Diego County, and she ran for office the first time in 2013 and lost. And then in 2018, she ran again against her former boss. She quit and then ran against her boss, and she was outspent 5-1. She wasn't supported by the local Democratic Party. She wasn't supported by the labor unions. She was actively opposed by the Chamber of Commerce and the police unions and all those folks. Outspent 5-1 and kicked ass, won by like 12 points. And she taught me so much. Her campaign wasn't this top-down hierarchy that a lot of campaigns see. It was full of committees and relational organizing and people in the community having ownership over the campaign. And they surprised everyone. And they beat it was like the first incumbent to go since, I don't know, sometime in the 90s. It was crazy. It was great. So, and she took that model from the campaign and took it into local government. So she ran, she won the city council seat. She then did a co-governance model, community governance model with the community. And she took legislation from the community, legislative ideas, and helped shepherd it through, and has built a significant amount of trust in what had been historically an incredibly underserved, under-resourced community, formerly redlined in San Diego. And then when she went to run for Board of Supervisors, when the former person, there was a special election, it was drama. There were some of those same folks came in again, the police unions, thinking that she's going to be even more dangerous if she has any kind of oversight over the sheriffs or the jails or anything like that. They came in, they sent folks from the state. It was wild. And she faced this incredible opposition, but that time the Democratic Party was like, oh no, she's the real deal, and surrounded her, and then we were able to win. She's done work on environmental justice, criminal justice, home ownership programs, Black arts and culture, just like really incredible things, bringing historical levels of investment into her community. And she's an inspiration. The second person that I would say is State Senator Steve Padilla. He spent, 20 years out in local government in Chula Vista. He lost an election at one point in the middle of his career for mayor because he had come out as gay while he was in office. So he faced a lot of homophobia and threats and things like that. And he still came back because he loved his community so much, and he knew that his skill set lent itself best to helping people through elected office. And so he ran again and won, and then I think he ran again and lost, and then ran again and won. Like, his journey has been very up and down, but he never gave up, and he never got cynical, right? And he never thought he was entitled to what to the community he really just wanted, or to the votes he really just wanted to help. And then he spent several terms on the city council, where he then got involved in state level commissions. And so he worked on, the Coastal Commission, which in California protects the coast with the Pacific Ocean, things like environmental justice, water quality, stuff like that. And then he was able to clear the field essentially on the Democratic side for his state Senate run, and is now doing, has amazing. He has this one piece of legislation that I really wish his friends in the legislature had the political will to pass, that would help to tie housing costs to wages, or tie living wage to housing costs, so that people could actually afford where they live. He's doing some really incredible work up there too. He's also helping to govern AI to protect children. And is really incredible. And they both went through a lot. And I think one of the things that, if people want to run for office, even locally, they have to understand and they have to prepare themselves for, is that it changes your life. It is like buying a house or getting married or getting a dog. It's a long-term commitment that fundamentally changes what your day-to-day life looks like. And you have to be able to adjust to that. and keep your North Star and your why central to like what you're doing every day, so that you don't become cynical, you don't give up, and you're able to fight those battles of political courage that other people aren't willing to take on, and do the long-term work that gets you those wins.
I think that that's incredibly inspiring. And I know that many more people are signing up to run for office now that we have this debacle that is happening that feels like a slow moving train wreck. And so I'm really glad that you are providing this. To me, I can really latch on to this idea of community governance and that being something that empowers people and then does trickle its way on up. And so it is a long-term thing. And I think we're, as you mentioned before, with the short-term or short attention spans that we have now, it's like we want quick, we want solutions now. And unfortunately, that is the way our brains work. But this is a slow moving process. And so thank you so much for joining us today to highlight what's working and what we hope will work and improve in the future. Where can people find you if they're thinking of running themselves?
Yeah, I hope you are thinking of running yourself. It's a little crazy, but you're going to be okay. It's evincostrategies.com, EVINCO strategies.com. There's a button on there that says book a call. That'll get you to me or one of my team members, and we can really start to navigate for you or with you what it looks like to run a campaign that's authentic to you and has the least disruptive impact on your life as possible. We have a very human-centered approach, and we will, treat you with dignity and respect and understand, what the challenges are in your life so that we can help you run a campaign and help your community without ruining your life.
Yeah, we don't want anybody's lives ruined in the process. It does seem very stressful. So thank you, Eva, for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We will be posting all this information so that everybody can find you. And have a great weekend. We made it to Friday.
Yeah.
Who knows what's in store this weekend?
TGIF. Thank you so much for having me, Maya. This has been a great conversation.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.